I'm Bruce Fummey. You're probably used to the idea of Scotland owning England. Whether it's because our King James VI went there and took it over on our behalf in 1603, or the fact that we ran their empire, did their inventing, won their wars and funded them through the Thatcher years. But then again, that's the kind of generosity you'd expect from the Scots, isn't it? We're renowned for our generosity. But what if I told you that the Scots' influence over England goes back even further than that? That Scota is not only our mother, but she was a midwife when England came into the world. If you're interested in the people, places and events in Scottish history, then click the subscribe button at the bottom right at any time. In the meantime, let me tell you a story. Oh, that might actually be a good time to tell you that you can now get mugs, t-shirts and hoodies with one of my magical thumbnails and the Let Me Tell You a Story legend on it. You'll find them underneath this video or at www.scotlandhistorytours.co.uk/shop. Anyway, today I've brought you to Lindisfarne Abbey on the Holy Isle in Northumbria. Now, you might be thinking, hold on, Lindisfarne, isn't that English? Well, not really. They're kind of Geordies, aren't they? We like the Geordies. Even a rabid anyone but England type would see an England team full of Geordies and they would go, oh, alright. I'll never sing God Save the Queen, but I don't mind the blading races. A lot of Scousers don't see themselves, they kind of see themselves as a bit separate from England as well, don't they? A posh English bloke once told me a joke. What do you get if you cross a Geordie with a Scouser? A housebreaker that's too lazy to steal. I'll be honest, I wasn't sure which was the thief and which was the laggard in that particular joke, and I didn't want to appear stupid, so I told him a joke about Fife. He told me a joke about Norfolk. I told him about the sexual proclivities of Highlanders. He talked about the Welsh. I went home and he went back to his house in Downing Street. The point is that identities in these islands aren't entirely straightforward. The monastery that this island's famous for was established by a Scot. Now, when I say Scot, I mean that in the original sense of Scot. I've been making a series of videos about the kingdoms and the peoples who made Scotland. And when I say Scots, I'm talking about those Scots from Dalriada. I'll leave a link to some of those videos at the end. This was part of the Bernician kingdom of the Angles. One of its most powerful kings was a guy called Oswald. He's seen as the archetypal English Christian warrior king. And I mentioned him in my video about the Angles in Scotland. But where and how did Oswald become this Christian warrior king? When Oswald was 12, his dad, Aethelfrith, was killed fighting against his brother-in-law and some Britons. Young Oswald, along with his mother, his siblings and some other English nobility, fled to Dalriada and sought refuge with the Scots. So from the age of 12, he grew up speaking Gaelic, being educated by the monks at Iona, living with and adopting the customs and culture of the Scots. Anglian Northumbria, English Northumbria, Anglian English. Either way, it would have included what we call Yorkshire. That makes me think of a young lad that I taught years ago when I was a physics teacher. He came to Scotland from Yorkshire as a kid. He grew up among us. He was educated here and he did very well for himself. When Scotland play at Murrayfield, there's no doubt that he sees himself as Scottish. I mean, he still talks about funny and supports Leeds United, but the point I'm making is that by the time young Oswald reached 29, he was no longer the pagan English/Angle boy that had fled Northumberland. He was now a Christian baptised in the Columban Church. He was a Scot who wanted his English crown back. So he returned to his Northumbrian home to do battle with Cadwallon the Briton, the king of Gwynedd, and the overlord of the Northumbrian kingdom Oswald saw as his. Oswald's army would have probably included some English Northumbrians who had fled and grown with him in Dalriada, a lot of Scots who'd accompanied them on their return, maybe even some adventuring Picts and Britons who saw opportunity in a man that seems to have been quite a heroic figure. But that army could never have set out without the say-so of the Dalriadan King of Scots and the blessing of the Columban Church. Heading south by sea from Argyll, they probably rounded Galloway and came up the River Eden to Carlisle, and then took the Staingate, the old Roman road that traced Hadrian's Wall east until they were just north of Hexham. The sources tell us that on the morning of battle, Oswald addressed his war council and told them how during the night he saw a vision of St. Columba. Columba had appeared to him and said, "Behold, I will be with you. This coming night go out from your camp into battle, for the Lord has granted me that at this time your foes shall be put to flight, and Cadwallon, your enemy, shall be delivered into your hands, and you shall return victorious after battle and reign happily." The whole people said that on the return from battle they'd accept the Christian faith and be baptised. And of course they did win the battle, and the pagan English with them were baptised. Then, in roughly 640 AD, Oswald asked the monastery at Iona, where he himself had been baptised and educated, to send monks to establish a monastery here on the Holy Isle to convert the pagan English to Christianity. St. Aidan came and converted the Northumbrians. Two different monks wrote the tale of the battle. Bede, the Anglo-Saxon historian monk, and Adaman, the Scots successor to Columba Iona. Two different sides. Now, it's probably not surprising that the Saxon clergymen under the Roman Church emphasised the crosses that the men put on their shields, just as the men of Constantine before the Battle of Milvian Bridge in the River Tiber. That's the one that led to Constantine Christianising Rome and ultimately the Roman Church. The Celtic clergymen emphasised the part played by the saintly visitation of Columba. Of course, they both emphasised the impact of the Christian Church and their branch of it. Is there ever an historian that doesn't have an agenda? But they both roughly agree in the basic story of why this abbey was established on Lindisfarne. The truth is that Oswald would never have had the vision the night before the battle without earthly support. The only reason that he reached Heavenfield for the battle was with the backing and support of the Scots King of Dalriada. The only reason that he survived his uncle's wrath at the age of 12 was because of the Scots King of Dalriada. When he achieved success, he brought with him the cultural influence of the Scots of Dalriada and a Columban monk to proselytise the English. And that is why there's a Scottish monastery on Lindisfarne. And that's why we get on with the Geordies. I have no idea why we always lose at football. Anyway, you can see another video about those peoples who made Scotland in a video coming up on screen now. In the meantime, Hammy and Doch is going to be Lamb alive. Cheery and Rasta. That is not a Facebook ending. Yeah, but you wanted to do a second. Yeah, I did. Anyway, okay, that's